Did you know that pigeons die after having sex?
No.
Well, one I did.
Hey, fun fans, it's We Enjoy. Going to talk to you about 1996's Scream in today's main event as part of our four-movie Scream marathon before the new movie Scream. From Scream to Scream, we're calling it. And
Is that what we're calling it?
it is now. And then you can also catch our Chucky-tacular episode where we recapped and reviewed and gave our thoughts about season 1 of the Chucky TV series that just ended last week. And so if you're all caught up on the entire Child's Play Chucky franchise and that show, you can listen to that episode, and it sort of places nicely into our whole recap of the franchise. And
every episode is on Peacock now. I realize that, there are people just like me, don't have cable anymore. And there are people who just like to wait for the easily accessible streaming service. So the day after the finale aired, they put all 8 episodes on Peacock. So if you want to catch up that way and then listen to our episode about it, you should do that.
You should definitely watch the series before, however you do it, before you listen to that episode. It is funny because cord cutting is becoming more prevalent, obviously. Fewer and fewer people have cables, just like how landlines have already almost gone the way of the dodo. We'll talk about landlines and cellular telephones in today's main event.
Will.
But you saying that don't worry, everyone. You didn't phrase it like this, Eric, but just like, hey, and for those who don't have cable, it's just on Peacock, because either you have cable or you have every streaming service, because cord cutting it doesn't automatically equate to I also have Peacock and Paramount Plus and all that stuff. Usually it means I have Netflix and Hulu and Amazon by default because I have Prime membership because I get packages. But it's Peacock. I still consider Peacock, even though I think it has good content and was very helpful for you and me who watch WWE Network for pay-per-views. I still consider it one of the and thens, as far as like the premium, the streaming services.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Although I just finished Saved by the Bell season 2 today, and I love it. Also, though, I want to remind everyone.
I'm saying it's great. I loved, why can't I think of it now? It's not We Are Lady Parts, because that's the one I didn't watch. Or is it We Are Lady Parts or We Are Girl Parts?
Girl Parts, I think.
Girl Parts. We Are Girl Parts, which I want to watch at some point. What was it? Why can't I remember the names of Peacock shows now?
I know the one you're talking about, and I never remember the name of it.
Five Eva. Girls Five Eva.
Yeah.
Right? About that was funny. I'm saying they have good content. With the Saved by the Bell reboot quill is great too.
Yes.
It's just they haven't been producing a lot of things that are buzzworthy.
I will just remind people again, if you wanted to check out any of these things, Chucky, or any of the other things, subscribe to Peacock, and if you wish to, just cancel it after a month, but do my trick, which is cancel it the minute you subscribe. If you're on a month, you just cancel it. It'll let you finish that month, and it just won't charge you, and then you have it for a month. That's the trick, everyone.
Cancel it right
because
now.
I know you're a lot of people fear, and the companies want you to forget to.
And people do, and also they want you to try to find go through the labyrinthine effort of trying to find how to cancel something. A lot of places make it difficult, and then after 5 minutes you give up and say I'll do it later, and then you don't remember to do that either. Right. So what was going on? I was watching the Game Awards, eating some fettuccine, and happy that Guardians of the Galaxy the game won Best Narrative. That's a good game, Eric. Good game.
That's the word on the street, and that's the word at the Game Awards.
Well, only for Best Narrative. It sucks for everything else. Let's see here. Some news broke very shortly before the Game Awards, TV related, that, and this is old news by now. We've talked about it on the podcast about how Netflix has gone from the, renewed its original, its launching series. We're talking about House of Cards and Orange is the New Black and the shows that were sort of part of Netflix's original show packages within the first 2 years that they started it. They seem to get renewed constantly. They were always coming back. They didn't cancel everything. And now they cancel, absolutely everything for reasons unknown. And they do it rather quickly too. To the point where when The Witcher, which is a huge hit for them, but granted has only had one season, and that was 2 years ago, is coming back in a week. And the showrunner mentioned The Witcher having a 7-season plan. And at the point she mentioned that, there was so much scoffing, right? Like, to assume, like, that doesn't mean that a Netflix series can't go that long, because they has, if we're talking about Orange is the New Black. But like, even Stranger Things will stands a good chance, if they wanted to go to 7 seasons, but it's still only heading into what, season 4 at this point. That's
so I keep guessing it'll probably end with 5. But
right. So, but anyway, Cowboy Bebop, which had a lot of fanfare from Netflix. It was one of the tent poles, if not the headliner of its Tudum showcase extravaganza that they ran about their original programming and movies. Has been canceled after, has it been 3 weeks, Eric?
Yeah.
3 weeks. So not even like the month that we all assume is their metric at this point.
Right.
So has it been performing so poorly in these few weeks that they're not even willing to wait on an announcement? Was there something that they needed to decide exactly today because of production issues? We don't know what goes on behind the scenes and, the decision making. It was a lot easier when it was just regular network television to figure out what happened. But this was a big project. Granted, it's still niche. Right. It's still a live action adaptation of an anime. And, like you say Cowboy Bebop to people walking down the street, 11 times out of 12, they're not going to know what the fuck you're talking about.
Right.
But, and John Cho, well known to us, household name, maybe not.
I think he's famous enough that people would recognize him, but maybe not
place the name. Yeah. So but anyway, this is just an interesting phenomenon. It's a bizarre conundrum. And so you could also argue something like Umbrella Academy. It comes from source material. It is also a very niche project. It is in the vein of all the new sort of, alternative heroes and villains, superhero, mature, rated M for mature storylines like The Boys and Invincible and Umbrella Academy. But that's doing really well. And so that easily could have gone the way of the dodo, but Umbrella Academy seems to have hit a chord. It just did what it needed to do with fandom. It's really good. I like that Umbrella Academy. But they didn't give me a chance, Eric, with Cowboy Bebop.
No.
Because I was like, I had a chance. I was like, I'm going to watch the original anime, which is only like 20 something episodes. And then I'm going to watch this and then I'll be set. Right. Like,
yeah. It was on my holiday list to watch. And I knew it had mixed response from the core, the audience who liked the anime, right? Which you almost expect when it's an adaptation of a beloved anime. It will not be universally adored.
The Harry Potter movies weren't universally adored by the hardcore book fans, right? So
of course not. Yeah. So I didn't put a lot of like, because I knew people didn't think it was unmitigated disaster. I knew some people I knew liked it, some people didn't. So I was going to check it out. And I still probably will, but it's just like, it is crazy that it's like, that it's just, we don't know their inner workings as much as they're like, we're being more transparent. They're still never really being transparent, even with the way they've recently been like, we're going to tell you more about our viewership, but they do it by hours viewed. And so it's like, they're still never really telling us like how many people watched all this show. And so, it's just, and there's no room to like grow your audience, like with their model. It's like, if you don't perform immediately, in this, and it turns out 3 weeks, that's it. There's just no room for you. Like, we will not. And so, yeah, it's very frustrating.
It also
and,
feels at this
point,
point, yeah, it just feels like a self-fulfilling prophecy at this point, right? Because it's not a weekly release model. So it's not like after 3 weeks, people have 2 or 3 episodes to catch up on. You're like, oh, I can do this. They've got like the whole season. And then if you don't watch the whole season, your show goes away. And so it's this race to hit it that first weekend. And people just can't do that. And the more they do, the more that Netflix's programming becomes less much watch, right? Like must watch. Like the more enticing the less enticing it is, the more urgent it is overall, because it used to be like new Netflix series dropped, but now there's so many of them and most of them are just, average at best. Like there's not the immediate impetus to watch the new Netflix thing.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember tweeting a couple years ago about how like, wow, we've really reached a turning point when Netflix canceled One Day at a Time. And there was a outcry of like, save this show, CBS. Like there was a like, can the network save the beloved show that Netflix canceled?
Yeah, it was a complete reversal of fortune, because Netflix was in the saving business forever. And then now. Yeah. So
then I retweeted Jason Lynch, who writes for Adweek, earlier today when the news came out about Cowboy Bebop, saying, and what he noted is like the odd role reversal of the fact that the linear networks, and both cable and just the networks, they're the ones who used to be infamous about like, oh, they might cancel something after 2 or 3 weeks if it's not doing well. These days are much more likely to wait and see, because now they don't look at overnight ratings as much, and they look at like, how much do we get over like with all the other stuff we have? And let's see its cumulative.
How does it perform on Hulu? How does it perform on whatever, AMC Plus? How does it perform internationally?
Right? On our website, all these things. And so now you've got the networks who are much more like, let's give it a shot. And Netflix is the one that's like, nope, 3 weeks, done. You're canceled.
There's a part of me that really wants to carve out a slice of this podcast to talk about Fear the Walking Dead and what a batshit show that is. Sure. Fear the Walking Dead coming back for season 8.
Season 8, yes.
Season 8.
Kim Dickens is coming
back.
I watched that show when she was on that show.
This is an insane series. But production values have shrunken. And viewership is way down, but it still does so well by whatever metrics the combined measurements that they all clump together in a cluster ball, as far as like, and I'm sure none of it has to do with same day viewership at all, like or +2 or whatever. It's everything else that we can't see internationally and online that they're judging this on, and that's why this absolutely higgledy-piggledy show is coming back for season 8. It's insane.
Yeah.
Those shows are so boring now. I've kind of checked out, and I'm at the point now where I'll finish out Walking Dead, but man, it'll be hard to get me back on the other two, because I've fallen behind by like 3 or 4 episodes each. I mean, World Beyond is going to end with this season anyway. But that show got so boring this season. Like, just
really, even though it was planned as 2 seasons,
they saved the worst season for second. Isn't that's what you do, right?
Like that's impressive almost, that they can like burn out that quickly. No, they knew it wasn't like it got canceled. They had a planned 2-season show.
They had a planned 2-season show, and they're like, guess what? Season 2, it's gonna suck.
We're gonna phone it in.
Oh god, it's gonna make people want to stick their head in a dryer. Okay,
we pre-sold this sucker. We're good.
It's building to nothing. Again, I'm 4 episodes behind. Maybe that's when everything ramps up to the finish. Sure. Okay. Other news. Let's get through this so we can talk Scream, baby. Colin Farrell is gonna be in a. Is this signed, sealed, and delivered? This Penguin series? Spin-off of the Batman.
I feel like we can keep this fairly brief. It was a few months ago that we heard this was something in development. Then Variety reported that Colin Farrell officially signed on. I don't know if the show has been given 100% green light, but sounds very likely it's happening. But we should the main thing here is this is the second HBO Max TV show spinoff of a movie we haven't seen yet of the Batman.
Yeah, and of a movie that we still are on the fence about how it fits or where it fits into the DCEU element.
I mean, presumably it doesn't at all, unless they want to multiverse say it has that connection.
I mean, if that's the case, then doesn't everything fit with everything because it's just a multiverse?
Yes.
Like, we don't even need a multiverse explanation. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's definitely not. This movie is not about a young version of the Ben Affleck Batman, so it's its own thing.
And the Catwoman, the Batwoman movie.
The Batgirl movie,
but
which is apparently part of the DCEU.
So that's not tied to the Batman.
No, because J.K. Simmons is apparently returning as Gordon in Batgirl, but Jeffrey Wright is Gordon in the Batman. Yeah, it's a lot.
It's upsetting. This is all upsetting. I don't like it. I'm going to go on record. Okay. Speaking of more multiverse, our next two stories are literally about fucking multiverse shit. Okay. So, Kevin Feige talking to who?
Well, this isn't as multiverse as much, but yeah.
It is slightly.
But then we do have a
I'm still
everything's
angry.
a multiverse.
I'm still angry. What's it been? 3 days later now. People who listened to the Chucky cast heard me rail about Venom Let There Be Carnage a little bit, and man, I still want to go off on that movie.
I got live texts, Matt, from Matt. Everyone, yeah, he was.
I watched Venom Let There Be Carnage. I wasn't in a hurry to watch it, and yet I had to watch it eventually at some point, just because it fits into things or will somehow. And I am so furious about how bad it was. I'm so mad, Eric, that at some point, Tom Holland's Spider-Man from the MCU movies, which are good and well-made and funny and heartwarming and thrilling, has to go and combine it himself with this utter hog shit. Like this, the fact that this movie is so bad and it's going to intermingle and intermix and pollute the rest of it. It's just.
I'm amused by how angry it gets you, because I don't think it's good. I agree with you, it's not good, but it doesn't make me as mad as it makes you. I'm
fine if it's bad on its own terms, away from the thing I want, right? Like,
right. But the double-sided coin of being successful doesn't make you good, but also being successful is, I guess, impressive in its own way. It's hysterical. Venom Let There Be Carnage, biggest Marvel movie of the year, has made more money than any MCU movie this year, and there's been 3. It made more than all of them. Obviously, Spider-Man's going to make more.
It's so popular, and it's so bad.
The people want it.
It's so bad. It's the funny thing is, like, I didn't have as many issues with it with the first Venom movie, even though it's still staggering how much money that movie made.
Yeah,
because it's just a middle of the road, schmedium milquetoast, blah, stupid movie that just wasn't impressive in any form. And I'm like, okay, people just are drawn to, white bread bologna sandwiches. Like, that's what they like, right? Like, okay, this one though was like rotten garbage, and people were still salivating for it. I don't understand. I just don't understand how it could get worse. It's like if season 2 of Walking Dead World Beyond somehow had 10 million viewers all of a sudden. They saved the worst for second again.
But unlike Walking Dead World Beyond, a lot of people still showed up.
This was a long way of me saying we're talking about Spider-Man here, or at least the MCU, and me being upset that Tom Holland is going to have to, somehow enter or mix into the world of this Eddie Brock and this Venom.
Well, hopefully, it'll be Feige's side of things.
Well,
guiding
as much as Tom Holland is invested in this Spider-Man and this character, and and the reports of him being one who was so instrumental in like saving the MCU Sony relationship and all that, really, wanting to give the fans what they want, wanting this third part of this trilogy for the MCU for himself. It's like he can recognize. I don't know. Uncharted doesn't look that good. I'm just gonna say he's gonna go into this, into something in a Sony movie and be like, "This is terrible stuff, guys. This is not what I am used to." In an interview, Kevin Feige said, now we're talking about Daredevil, that Charlie Cox, who played Daredevil in 3 seasons of Daredevil on Netflix and Matt Murdock on the Defenders miniseries, I guess, is still his guy for Daredevil. So he didn't say Charlie Cox will return as Daredevil. He more or less said, if Daredevil returns, he will be played by Charlie Cox.
Right.
So,
but our plan is never see Daredevil again.
But our plan is to kill Daredevil off screen.
Say, did you hear Daredevil die?
He was killed by the Tracksuit Mafia, and you're like, no. In a really
but
dumb
we got
way.
Charlie Cox to play his corpse for one scene.
And he wouldn't have been lying. He's like, if you see Daredevil again, he'll be played by Charlie Cox. So anyway, that's fun because look, fans, including myself, are looking to this Spider-Man movie to give us a lot, maybe even more than it is going to give us. So we have to sort of temper our expectations.
Maybe we want it to be like Wild Stallions and to save the entire universe.
Maybe the harmony of the cosmos hinges on this movie doing well and also satisfying everything, our entire wish list. Yeah. So anyway, exciting news. Charlie Cox will be back. No mention of D'Onofrio as Wilson Fisk or Kristen Ritter as Jessica Jones or any of the other people that we have enjoyed from the Netflix Marvel verse.
I mean, it's fun to hear just because, the TV shows, the pre Marvel Studios TV shows, again, you have to make sure with that distinction, everything basically before WandaVision that was produced by Marvel TV, that was not produced by Feige, it's kind of in this weird limbo. And whether it was because it was never acknowledged before, would they ever going forward acknowledge it, is this sort of murky question. You and I were discussing, like, if and when Charlie Cox does return as Matt Murdock.
So yeah, like we were texting, if D'Onofrio comes back as Kingpin or if Cox comes back as Matt Murdock, is it a Judi Dench M situation? Whereas like Judi Dench played M for Pierce Brosnan and Daniel Craig, but those were two different M's.
And definitively, because those were definitively not the same James Bond reality. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So it's like the M she played for Daniel Craig, which was his movies were a reboot of the entire saga.
Yeah.
So the M she played for, the M she played for Brosnan was a new M, right? Wasn't in Goldeneye. She's like, you're a sexist, misogynist dinosaur.
Yes. Yeah. My predecessor may have. Yeah.
Right.
So by the way, who's doing this right now is J.K. Simmons, who's, MCU version of J. Jonah Jameson is not the same guy from the Sam Raimi movies,
But that's the answer to that question is multiverse. The answer to
but if they never did multiverse, it would still be the answer to the question. You know what I'm saying? It's just like it's still him playing a different character. Whereas here, what I think is going to happen if these guys show up is there will not be a definitive answer to whether those shows took place. I don't expect any specific references to those shows, but I also expect it to be a murky place where if you want, those things happen. And sometimes continuity might sound a little off. Like, we could talk about this. There's such heavy speculation that we might see Kingpin and Hawkeye. It's like, well, already what we've heard about if this character is him, does this match what we would?
It doesn't match, right? It not really. It also doesn't feel like the same character. But
right.
But it maybe we can just sort of do what Ghostbusters Afterlife did, which is like they didn't say Ghostbusters 2 didn't happen. But they also didn't mention it the way they mentioned the first movie. Yeah.
And I think that is
no one brought up the Statue of Liberty walking through New York and cracking open the Metropolitan Museum of Art, which was covered in a hard shell of pink slime, right? Like
it'll be very similar to when the Star Wars expanded universe was happening under Lucas, when Lucas ran Star Wars, and it was like never quite matching because his stuff would always contradict it. And then they'd be like, but maybe we can say that this happened instead to make it all work. I think there'll be a lot of fan heavy lifting to make it work. even though it won't really 100% work, but it'll be in that a murky gray area.
And the funny thing is like they've been look, there are slips and slides and holes here and there in the MCU. Obviously, it's such a large thing that's never quite been done before,
and
like
and
by
movies have continuity mistakes.
They just do in general, especially when you're dealing with so many characters and different an ongoing saga that all have their own heroes having their own sequels. But with something like this, you do feel like leaving the heavy lifting to the fans isn't something that they're into. They're a little better than that, but that might be what happens anyway. But okay. Let's talk about our final bit of multiverse news, which is that a teaser, I don't even call it a full trailer, but a snippet, a teaser for and official name and concept of the next Into the Spider-Verse movie was announced, and it's called Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse Part 1. So already assuming it's going to end with a cliffhanger because of that, right? Not 100%, but that's what it sort of insinuates.
It does. I guess, by the way, look, saying a couple things here, which is that, look, it's a sequel to such a fantastic movie. Of course, I'm just super excited, and I bet it'll be an amazing film. I will say I'm surprised they went with that title simply because there was that glut of Part 1, Part 2. After Harry Potter did it, all these other movies did it, especially book adaptations that wanted to they wanted to stretch it out, and they would get an extra movie if they split the final book into two.
They didn't do it. They didn't do Part 1 and Part 2 for the Hobbit trilogy, but they definitely took two movies, and like that was a big part of production. They spread it into three movies to the point where they took 2 or 3 pages from the book of the Hobbit and turned it into a whole movie. Like that third movie is kind of a bit of a cow pie. It's kind of a turd. But it's the same thing happened there. But yeah, Twilight, anything to sort of get the extra movie out.
So I just was surprised they went with the Part 1 title, because it just seems to be less and less you do that. I realized Dune but Dune was just promoted as Dune. It's only until you sat down and watched the movie that you saw it was called Dune Part 1.
But you know what also did it? Breaking Bad. Like TV did it too.
Well, TV did it too, but TV is a little different because there's such a just promise of there'll be more. I guess
I'm saying like they took a season and they split it.
Yeah.
When did that ever happen before?
Right. Although most of the time that was mostly so they didn't have to pay the actors more.
Exactly. They kept the label season. Yeah.
But I always remember when Infinity War was announced as Infinity War Part 1 and Part 2 originally. They were just going to call them Part 1 and Part 2. And then they decided to give them different titles. So I guess I'm just saying right now, it surprises me that they would just call them Part 1 and Part 2. Why not just say, by the way, this is going to be a trilogy. Like we're officially announcing a third movie as well. It just
maybe they have plans to use that Across the Universe song in both movies.
Okay.
Maybe also they're saving the worst for second.
That's what you always do.
That's a terrible pattern to fall into. But anyway, it looks great. Got the animation is still stunning. We saw a scene with Miles and Gwen. Haley Steinfeld.
They've aged up a little bit. Yeah, Haley Steinfeld's domination of all entertainment continues.
Of all fall winter entertainment right now, and then sort of him falling through the Spider-Verse vortex and doing a little battle, and in and out quick, and it was like 2.5 minutes or something like that, but it was a lot of fun.
I mean, and that is the length of a trailer. It's just that it was
it just wasn't like a montage of footage and stuff like that.
I will say and then the really cool thing I thought was when he falls into a different universe and he fights Spider-Man 2099, the animation completely changes, and they revealed in concurrent interviews that the whole movie, every time they go to a different world, it'll be different style animation.
And that's going to be Oscar Isaac, right?
Oscar Isaac is the third official cast member of this movie. Is it Shamik Moore? Am I remembering his name? Yeah, Shamik Moore, Haley Steinfeld, and Oscar Isaac.
I thought Issa Rae was announced.
She was. Oh, she's still not on the press release. I think she was in the trades.
Right.
So obviously there'll probably be more returning. Jake Johnson's probably going to be in this movie at some point. And there'll be plenty of other people. But right now there's 3 cast members. But obviously, very excited for this stuff.
It's like how in Lightyear has 1 cast member.
Yes, just one guy.
It's
Chris Evans
doing a bunch of voices. Hello. Yeah.
I love you, Buzz.
Hey, he does all the crowd cheers.
Mhm.
All right, let's get out of this multiverse hell and go into well, you can follow us on Twitter at the Matt Fowler, the Eric Goldman, and We Enjoy Podcast over on Patreon. For a few dollars a month, you can get a commercial-free version of this podcast, and you can find that at patreon.com/We Enjoy Podcast. And then also,
I'd argue $2 is less than a few. I think a few sounds like.
I know it's you don't like it when I use few to say two. You'd rather I use a couple bucks.
Yes.
A duo of dollars.
Just there you go. Oh my
god.
And
We Enjoy Podcast at gmail.com if you want to drop us a line and say, hey, what's up? How you doing? How was your fettuccine, Matt? Was it delicious? It was. Okay. Let's get into our good things to enjoy. Next week's assignment obviously is Scream 2, which is way more easily viewable on Paramount Plus. Again, if you have Paramount Plus, you could be a cord cutter and not have Paramount Plus, as we stated. But I do, or at least I have someone else's login, so I can watch it. And then Scream is today, and then the subsequent Scream movies afterward.
By the way, Scream 1 is now on Paramount Plus. I had a feeling. Paramount is putting out the new Scream movie, so I think they probably have them all.
Fortunately, I owned it on a few digital platforms anyway already, but yeah. So I'll start with the good things to enjoy, only because it is not easily viewable anywhere. You can only kind of rent this movie right now, though fortunately you can, because with a lot of old films, it might not be available to see anyway. Mine is One False Move. We haven't talked about, who did we just talk about? Who did Surviving the Game? Ernest Dickerson, right?
Yes,
talking about him. There's a handful of like 80s and 90s directors who for a while had movies, like they got 3 or 4 movies under their belt, and then now just direct a shit ton of TV, like Ernest Dickerson, Bill Duke, a lot of people, but and Carl Franklin, TV, but also John Dahl. Do you know John Dahl movies? Okay.
What's the one with Linda Fiorentino I'm blanking on?
So Eric and I watched a lot of movies in the 90s and saw the rise of Tarantino, right? And I think that also feeds into our Scream talk too, as far as like someone who got instantly hot, had a lot of screenplays produced because of that. With Scream, it was like Kevin Williamson.
Yeah.
And changed the landscape too, the tonal landscape of like what we would see in movies. And Tarantino, after Tarantino, maybe a little bit with Reservoir Dogs, and then maybe or a whole lot with Pulp Fiction, the crime movie landscape changed completely. And a lot of Tarantino clones came out in the wake of Pulp Fiction. Before that, before Pulp Fiction, when was that? 94, Eric? 93?
Yes, Pulp Fiction was 94.
Okay. Before that, I was a big fan of like small crime movies, and John Dahl did a lot of them. I know I'm talking about him because Carl Franklin directed the movie I'm recommending.
I know. I was like, why are we
I'm all over the place? But I'm also recommending just John Dahl films, Red Rock West, Last Seduction, Kill Me Again. But there were a lot of cool early 90, pre-94 crime movies like Deep Cover and Homicide and Miami Blues and just like fun movies. Okay. Carl Franklin, I thought of the other day because Out of Time was on cable and I was watching it. I am not a cord cutter. I have TV on sometimes and just runs things. And I forgot how much I liked Out of Time with Denzel Washington.
You're never going to get to the movie.
I am not at all. And Carl Franklin, that was his second collaboration with director Carl Franklin after Devil in a Blue Dress, which I also recommend.
It's a very good movie.
Now, before that, now we're at the movie. And I recommend this movie. I think it's really well done. It is co-written by Billy Bob Thornton, who would garner even more acclaim a few years later by writing and starring and directing. Yes? Sling Blade? So, yeah. Did he direct Sling Blade? Okay. He only co-wrote and co-starred in this. But this is also a great movie for people looking to fill in their Bill Paxton sort of cinema catalog. It's called One False Move. And it's a great small town crime movie about sort of like wheeling dealing LA criminals who make a stopover in a small sleepy town, and big city detectives roll in and have to deal with the small town sheriff, this place called Star City, and this guy's played by Bill Paxton, and he's kind of played like a dipshit. He's like, oh, finally some action in my town. He kind of idolizes the detectives who treat him like shit a little bit. Right. But the movie's deeper than that, and you find out that, you know, the sheriff has sort of this personal connection to what's going on in his town as far as like the killers who've stopped by, and it's really well done. And Carl Franklin directed it, and I really recommend it. You can only rent it. Great Bill Paxton performance. Billy Bob Thornton playing one of the villains in this movie, and no one else really is like rings out as super famous.
Well, Michael Beach is pretty familiar.
Michael Beach,
Black Manta's dad.
What's that?
He's Black Manta's dad in Aquaman. But he's been in a million things. TV wise, he's pretty recognized.
He's jacked too.
Oh yeah.
Because wasn't he on the 100?
He was on the 100. Yep.
Yeah, he's
on ER, and there's on some other Third Watch. That's right. That was the other medical thing he was on.
All right. Great movie.
It's good. I haven't seen it in forever, but I remember.
Okay, you have seen it. Okay, good.
Oh yeah.
That was my recommendation of One False Move, along with early 90s crime movies.
So to recommend mine, I have to go back to 1913 in the history of comedy. My recommendation is MacGruber.
I mean, yeah, let's talk about vaudeville a little bit. Yeah.
MacGruber the movie, because the streaming series premieres next week on Peacock. But first, you can watch the feature film from 2010, which is
I wasn't sure if you were recommending the series or not.
I know. Well, I'm under embargo. I can't talk about whether I recommend the series or not.
You can't say if you like it or not.
But last night was the premiere, which was a public thing, and I couldn't go last minute, but people did tweet after it. I liked it, guys. Anyway.
Oh no.
No, I liked it. I don't know. You didn't hear that from me.
I did hear it from you.
Yes. But no, MacGruber from 2010, which I rewatched, before the show a couple weeks ago. It's just a fucking funny movie. It's funny. There hasn't been an SNL movie adaptation since. And SNL, I will say a little history of SNL movie adaptations, just to say that, Blues Brothers was a big hit. And then it's like Wayne's World was a big hit, and we got a glut in the 90s, another 90s glut of SNL adaptations, most of which were shitty.
Yeah, we had a Stuart Smalley movie, we had a It's Pat movie, we had a Roxbury movie,
we had The Ladies' Man.
We had a Superstar movie. Remember the Catholic schoolgirl,
Mary Kathleen,
Gallagher.
So there was,
there
was a bunch. But then they went away. MacGruber was the only one we've gotten since 2010, and MacGruber was a financial huge bomb, and it didn't get great reviews. If you look back on Rotten Tomatoes, it's like a 40-something%. But goddamn, I love this movie. I've tweeted out this story before, but I saw this movie opening week with a group of friends, and there was maybe 15 people in the entire theater because it was a bomb, and we were like 5 of them, and I got yelled at for laughing. This is the only time I can say this happened.
Was it Trish?
Comedy. No, it was not Trish. We were laughing because it was cracking us up. And some guy sitting, I'm a loud goddamn laugher. I know that.
You pay quiet reverence for MacGruber.
Pretty much, because this guy goes, "Could you please stop laughing so loud?" To which I shot back, "I'm sorry, I'm laughing at the funny comedy." But I almost got
what if that's what Max Cady said in Cape Fear when he was really watching funny. Problem Child.
Yes. Anyway, you probably know what MacGruber is. It is funny because the sketch, and I actually went back and rewatched a bunch of the sketches recently, which are still very funny, but it's so hyper specific. It is a parody of MacGyver. MacGyver's whole thing is he can make something, he can make like a bomb out of like a piece of string and whatever. And the MacGruber sketches were all the fact that this was like, what if MacGyver always screwed up? Because the punchline of every MacGruber sketch was the place blows up because he gets distracted and doesn't finish trying to save them and defuse the bomb. But the movie was just like, let's just do a parody of like action movies and tropes.
So
and the badass
movie,
hero.
the movie was like, because MacGyver
Mhm.
was a 80s. Did it go into the early 90s TV
I think
series?
it might have. Yeah, I think it was in the early 90s as well.
But like, yeah, I think when we talked about Roadhouse a little bit, we mentioned that like it takes Roadhouse, it takes Rambo, it takes a bunch of like different things and sort of pushes them together in a very funny way, a way that makes Eric laugh way too loud, but still like very funny.
It does. It gets me in trouble. But yeah, I just think it's a freaking hysterical movie. And one of the things I love most about the show, I'm sorry about the movie, but maybe the show, is that he is such a piece of shit. He's just like the worst person ever. Like when they revealed like the history him and the villain played by Val Kilmer have and what their vendetta is, it's hysterical because it's not good for MacGruber. Yeah, it's great. Kristen Wiig is hysterical in it. Ryan Phillippe kind of plays the straight man in the group. Val Kilmer's a lot of fun, has the villain. It just cracks me up. And look, clearly this TV show's existence shows you that it became a cult thing. It bombed when it came out, but people loved it. And very quickly there's like, well, can there be a sequel? And they've had to deal with a decade of us asking, but this is the era of everything comes back through streaming if there's a cult following for it. So we get MacGruber because NBC Universal owns MacGruber and they have a new streaming service. So
You know, it's
it all
funny,
worked out.
like even though you could argue like obviously Saved by the Bell is a much bigger pop culture phenomenon than MacGruber just from like a success rate.
Yeah, more people have seen. Yeah,
and
yeah.
I know it and like hold it in high regard and stuff like
Mhm.
that. But like, you know, hardly a peep's made about, you know, the season 2 of Saved by the Bell now, the new Saved by the Bell, because of the Peacock element, because they don't have like a giant, giant shows to tout on their streaming service, that MacGruber is almost the default, kind of default top of the bill, right? As far as like their giant pop culture properties that they're making for the platform.
It's certainly up there. And then, Will
And
Forte,
it comes from a giant bomb. So yeah.
Giant bomb, yeah. Will Forte, of course, is the star. He is MacGruber, but he and John Solomon and Jorma Taccone, when they all worked on SNL, created it together. They've done the movie and now the streaming service together. Jorma is kind of famous in a different way because he's part of The Lonely Island, but he directed the film, co-wrote and directed the movie, and he's co-wrote and directed parts of this TV show.
Is it a silent
J?
I never knew that.
Is he what?
A silent J, Jorma. I always call him Jorma.
I believe he is Jorma. But yeah, so the gang's all back together. They got everyone, the movie cast.
And they added Billy Zane and
Lawrence Fishburne and Sam Elliott.
Oh, and Sam Elliott too. Yeah, so they're Roadhouse connection.
There's a Roadhouse connection. So anyway, still cracks me up. Still getting me yelled at.
Didn't say you still watch it. Even if you'd gone to the premiere, you'd have been yelled at her.
That's right. By Will Forte.
It's like, shut up. It's not that funny.
You're ruining my show.
Only I can laugh that loud.
That's right.
All right. Let's talk about Scream. Full spoilers for 1996's Scream.
Yeah.
What
a movie, Matt, that I was amused when you were like last week, you're like, everyone's seen Scream, only because we've talked about, Scream was a huge hit and we'll talk about its success, but just like, more people have seen Spider-Man. But
I know more people have seen Avatar. I get that it's an old movie at this point. It's 25 years old, but I'm saying like, I don't know. It's one of those big movies that changed everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like there's interesting parallels actually to draw between horror and wrestling in the 80s and then horror and wrestling in the 90s and what happened and how both in 1996 kind of got reinvigorated by something.
Sure.
The formation of the NWO and then also Scream. So like both had giant booms and then took sort of a gentle nap in the 90s and then came back. Maybe wrestling came back a little bigger than horror, but horror did get a shot in the arm, and Scream did change a lot about the slasher movie we would see going forward. One big element being that they'd be cast with notable actors, many from television, like this movie was.
Yeah.
Instead of like nobodies that were just sort of like knife fodder for people.
It's funny that I was thinking about how, because there was what became a cliche after Scream was like the hot young cast, hot both as in buzzy but also just attractive, that were almost always included people from WB shows, like the WB, the network. Scream, no one on Scream was from the WB. It's just that Nev Campbell was
from like a teen soap,
show that could have been on the WB.
Yeah. She was still a TV star. Courtney Cox also at that point, mega TV star.
Yes.
But for movies. But Scream is like, man, Scream's like a near perfect movie.
Oh yeah, I mean, I didn't take almost any notes watching it because how, you know, look, I've watched it so many times. It's one of the movies I've seen the most in my life. And yeah, it's just like when Scream came out, there's, you know, one of those, you know, we all have those movies that we see and they're like, they made this movie for me. This is like, everything about this movie is for me, and that was Scream.
And so many fun things came in, you know, everything just sort of lined up in the correct way with this new writer who, Kevin Williamson, obviously I haven't loved everything he's done, but this movie just not only did it like play around with horror tropes that we all grew up with, that he obviously loved and grew up with, but also he was able to take the rules of murder mysteries and bend them in such a fun way. There's so much fun red herring play in this film, to the point where the original red herring is the actual killer, like, and right. You've gone through like several zigzags through the movie before landing on it, and then getting hit with the double killer, and like, oh, and there's an extra killer. So because that itself, that reveal at the end, Eric, also plays into the horror trope that wasn't even discussed in this movie about how the killer can seemingly be everywhere. And so he does so many clever things in this movie, and then you add the Wes Craven element on top of it, who himself is coming off of, you know, creating a huge mega franchise from the 80s that has now, this is his, you know, births a new franchise in a different way. He's not the sole, you know, the creator like he was Nightmare on Elm Street, but like he was able to bring into this the comedy but also kind of like the really nastiness. There's like still a nastiness to Scream that is able to coexist with the meta humor. And that's where it all sort of finds its sweet spot. And I can't think of a movie that has a more entertaining first 10 minutes and final 10 minutes.
Yes.
Like that's the movie. Any other movie where a villain tells you what they're doing and like speaks too much and gives their whole spiel, you can kind of roll your eyes at a little bit and be like, all right, this is a little much. This movie, you would specifically go to watch over and over again to re-enjoy the first 10 minutes and watch people discover it maybe for the first time because it's so crazy. And then the same thing with the final 10 minutes, because it's so fucking fun to watch everything that goes down, you know, when the killers are finally revealed. So it did so many new things narratively that I really appreciate. And it was fun. And it used performers we were familiar with while also launching new faces. So like Jamie Kennedy, who had got a whole career out of this, and Kevin Williamson, who got a whole career out of this. And I don't know, what was Arquette in before? I knew him before this movie.
Well, he had been in Buffy, the movie with Luke Perry.
Was that all I knew him from? Maybe.
They became good friends. No, I feel like he'd been in other stuff that, like, you know, that we you know, he was a recognizable.
And Rose McGowan. And also, yeah, obviously I knew Matthew Lillard from Hackers because I love that movie to a ridiculous degree that it doesn't deserve. But like, he was still like not a known commodity.
Right. Looking at David Arquette's credits, I knew him from Buffy for sure, and I'd seen him in Airheads. He had other credits, but those were the two things.
So a little behind the scenes for this movie is that Drew Barrymore was a huge factor in getting this movie made and cast when she signed on to be the lead. And then due to something, I don't know what the specifics were, but she didn't want to drop out of the film completely. Something was scheduling. She couldn't be in the movie as much as she wanted to be. So she took the role of Casey at the beginning and still was in the movie. And not only was she in the movie, but it added a layer to the movie that no one expected, which was not only was the first kill of the movie fun and brutal and set the tone for everything to come, but you killed off the most famous star, because Drew Barrymore is in this movie, and she had been a movie star for, at that point,
almost
like
her entire
15
life.
years. Yeah, like
yeah.
she started when she was a wee kid. But yeah, so and in the original posters for this movie, not just the one of like, that might be Nev Campbell's face or any female eyes with the hand covering the mouth.
I believe it is Drew Barrymore, by the way.
But in the character posters, Drew Barrymore was like the biggest person.
She's very prominent, yes.
and she's not the lead of the movie. So it is like a bit of an audience contempt / manipulation where, oh, she's the lead of the movie. Oh, she's dead now.
Yeah.
And it set up an anything goes tone for the film, where as we reached the third act, we're like, well, maybe aside from Sydney, anyone can die. Mm-hmm. Like anyone, Randy's shot, he could be dead. Dewey was stabbed, he could be dead. You know, like all these people we didn't have like a reverence for because they weren't now the Scream legacy characters. But at that point, they were all just, bozos in a movie called Scream. So
I interviewed Matthew Lillard and Skeet Ulrich together a couple months ago when they put out like a new, 25th anniversary 4K of the movie, and he just said something very similar to what you said, Matt, which is just like how Scream is a great movie, but it's like also it sort of sucker punches that the first 10 minutes grab you so much, and then he said the last 20 minutes, but the same thing as far as like he's like, hey, the middle's good, but that beginning and end are so great. And you want, that's what you want, right? You want to grab people and you want to leave them feeling satisfied. And goddamn, does this movie do that? And yeah, I mean, again, this is going to be a lot of gushing, I realize, on this episode, but it's like, this movie came out, I loved it so much. And then it's like, when I would tell people about it, I was like, it's a great horror movie. It's a great murder mystery movie. It's a great, self-referential comedy. It just like it checked all these boxes. And also I know I've mentioned this before because we've talked about Scream, tangentially and all, and how, you have to look at everything contextually, and especially a movie like Scream that so many things have copied since and was so influential, is that we're still at a time in 1996 where the term meta is not known by everyone. And it's so fresh and exciting to do that. And it's funny because Wes Craven had already done a very meta movie with New Nightmare, which was a bomb. I love New Nightmare, but it was a bomb, but wasn't nearly as comedic as this. And I think that's the secret sauce, right? Is like, do meta, but also make it comedic. And so again, we're jumping all around, but that's fine. Like Matt, when I saw this movie opening night and Billy Skeet Ulrich says, sure it is. Sure, it's all one big movie, Sid. And he's not looking at the camera. He's not breaking the fourth wall like he's like, like on Deadpool. But it's a huge, still like meta moment. And at the time, I just couldn't fathom that. It was so cool because it wasn't a common thing. We're very used to meta now. I just mentioned Deadpool. Yeah. Like it's like,
well,
people
in
referencing
this movie,
stuff.
Well, people referenced real movies that we knew, actors and actresses that we knew in this, the only time they goof it up is when Tatum's like, sounds like a Wes Carpenter film, because
right.
But other than that, they're talking about the villains of this movie are very notably now, in retrospect, really sort of elements of toxic fandom who, like just scream at girls for not knowing enough about horror movies or something stupid. Like right, you got this wrong, you like that band, name 3 of their songs, like that kind of bullshit, like gatekeeping, awful fans who like make you live or die based on stupid bullshit trivia. And that was something that, there was, the internet was fledgling at this point. So people weren't experiencing this sort of like harassment in real life. They'd actually have to call you on a landline to yell at you in this movie. But with the Skeet Ulrich thing, Ulrich or Ulrich, whatever. But it's like, so he was cast because he did, and this has been a joke throughout his career.
Yes.
He did, look like Johnny Depp. And so Wes Craven was like, oh, this is a fun nod to the original Nightmare on Elm Street in its own right.
Because he has him climbing through her upstairs bedroom window, which is a direct reference to Nightmare on Elm Street.
And not only is it a direct reference to that, but So Laurie gave Michael Myers a fight in Halloween, and then what's her name from Friday the 13th to Ginny? Who's the final
Jenny,
girl?
yeah. Mhm.
You know, she battled Jason, but nobody sort of like took the piss out of Freddy and like beat him up in a weirdly like slapstick way than Nancy and Freddy in the first Friday the 13th. Nightmare on Elm Street movie. Ghostface. So the point that like, and this extends to the other movies, Ghostface gets the shit kicked out of him or herself constantly.
Yes.
Gets falls downstairs, gets hit in the nuts, he gets home alone constantly.
Right.
And that's another thing Wes Craven brought to this movie from his original Nightmare on Elm Street. So yeah, you see all these things creep in from other horror movies, but also from Wes Craven's horror movies specifically. And Billy Loomis, obviously named after Dr. Loomis from Halloween. Stu Macher could be named after Schumacher. I don't know. But he is such a red herring that he gives menacing looks off camera when no one's looking. In the video store, when he's like hugging Sydney and the phone falls out of his pocket or whatever, to the point where it's like, oh, he's mugging it up so much he can't be the killer. And then
by the way, that's what Skeet Ulrich said was his approach to the performance was, we're going to aim so much at me as the red herring that, to do a weird loop on it of like, go all in on it.
And so that when it was revealed to be him, it was hilarious. It was hilarious because it's like, that's how he was. He was just an idiot psycho. And the fact that Randy called the entire end of the movie in the video store was funny as shit. Like, because Stu's there being like, I think it's her dad, and like trying to like move
set up their alibi.
Right. But Randy's like, no, he's the killer. He did it. If the cops watch more horror movies, they'd know. And like, so he called it like, at least 30 minutes before the end of the movie. But yeah, so this was a world that we lived in because it was, and I'm not talking about the lyric from Land of Confusion by Genesis. This was the movie that we knew these movies and we had these conversations.
Right. This is what we should mention. Again, like things that were sort of revolutionary at the time. And I think we've mentioned this as well, but it's like, this is just a year or two, I think 2 years after Clerks, which was, one of the things that made Clerks stand out so much was like, holy shit, it's guys sitting around talking about the minutia of Star Wars. We do that. And again, now that is a very played out thing, one might argue. But at the time, and of course, Kevin, those movies are not nearly as artistically made as a Wes Craven movie. And you can debate if they hold up at all. But it was a very fresh thing just to have like characters who sit around and talk about pop culture like we do. And Scream continued that. It just was horror specific. So it was even more niche, but that was super cool if you're into horror.
And there were other elements of the time that, some of our younger listeners might not remember, aside from the fact that the police were flabbergasted that Billy Loomis had a cellular telephone.
I was going to say, I've seen this movie, many times in revival theaters, and the one constant unintentional laugh is now the like, why do you have a cell phone?
No, it's just what are you doing with a cellular telephone, son?
What are you doing with a cellular telephone?
They never say cell. It's always cellular. You got to check the
telephone.
Cellular bill. He made cellular calls.
So it's funny because even though, of course, there are other things in this movie that show it's of a certain era, like the video store, that doesn't seem as fun. That just seems like a cool retro thing. It's the incredulous reaction to the cellular phone that always gets people to laugh. But also it shows you how quickly things change because, yes, cell phones existed all through the 90s, and there was the brick version Zach Morris had. But this movie comes out in Christmas 96. We're just about to have it become very commonplace to the point that Scream 2 comes out 1 year later, and a shitload of characters have cell phones in that movie, and it's not brought up why. Because it's like, that's how quickly things are changing, that it's like, of course, all the college kids have cell phones in Scream 2. So this was just on the precipice of that.
Another thing of the era was... what's Gail Weathers' show? Top Story? What's
Oh,
it,
yeah, I
hot,
believe
hot
so.
copy? What's it called? I can't remember.
I think it's Top Story, but yes, hard copy. And
But so of the time, there were television shows like basically the most famous one was Hard Copy. There were other ones as well that just like took you
a
through
current affair.
current affair, true crime news of the day. They weren't like cold case files. It was like what's happening now. Like this little girl was murdered. This person like is on the run. Like what? So they literally followed court cases and or happening crime that was still like active crime scenes and stuff like that. So that's where Courtney Cox's Gail Weathers comes from, like that type of tabloid character, because there were tabloid TV shows. I guess the closest we have now, though, is celebrity centric, is TMZ. But for a while, it was like it was all about murder. Because if we ever do Natural Born Killers, that's a part of that too.
Right.
With Robert Downey Jr.'s character. So. Okay, let's talk about the actual movie. We'll go through it quickly as we can, but the first 10 minutes, iconic. Drew Barrymore gives it her all. The fact is, like, biggest star going into this movie, also arguably the most memorable scene leaving this movie, the one that everyone knows because it's, you could say like least amount of screen time, but most amount of impact. This kill. It answers so much. It's such a journey. It's such a fun ride going from the initial phone call, hang up, call back, chit chat, flirt a little. Like she even acts like she doesn't have a boyfriend when he's on his way over. Then it just starts getting nasty and creepier and talking about actual movies, before it gets threatening, like I'm just going to watch scary movies and eat popcorn. And I don't agree with her that the rest of the Elm Street movies sucked, but everyone's entitled their opinion. I'm not going to kill her about it, Eric. I'm not going to kill her about it.
This was all in Williamson's script. I remember that this got talked about a lot because when Kevin Williamson wrote the script, he did not know Wes Craven would direct it. Of course, it was a dream come true that he did. But of course, Wes Craven famously left the Elm Street series after one. He did return for New Nightmare, but he had very little. He had a little bit to do with 3, but nothing to do with.
I was going to say he came back a little bit for 3. Yeah,
a little bit. But anyway, Jess. So that line, of course, is extra funny. That the creator of Nightmare on Elm Street, he didn't write the line, but he kept it in.
There's just so much going on if you analyze the scene as far as like, and I'm sure movie students have already actually analyzed the scene and the script and the way that it changes, because by the time she says, I do have a boyfriend, you don't believe her because you're right. Like when she says he plays football, he's big and he plays football and he'll kick the shit out of you. That sounds fake. So it's like, it sounds like at that point she'll say anything to like scare the guy on the other end of the phone. But then that turns out to be true. So it's like, there's so many different ups and downs here that work so well with and the end of this movie with the reveal that there are 2 killers retroactively explains and I'm sure there are YouTube videos or people have actually talked about like where was Stu and where was Billy during all of these scenes.
Oh, this is constantly asked to the actors, constantly.
But I mean, you can kind of figure it out on your own. I'm sure.
For the most part, yeah. Also,
even when like the next day at school when he's like, well, I didn't kill anybody. And Billy's like, I didn't say you did, like to let you know that Billy killed the, Casey and Steven. So, yeah.
Or did he? Because most people think Stu killed Casey, Matt, but that's an eternal debate.
Well, but like, no, I don't think they killed their own girlfriends. Like, I think Billy killed his ex-girlfriend, and the same way that like Stu wasn't going to kill his own sister. Right? Like it's a crisscross, Eric. Crisscross.
It's a crisscross applesauce. Wait, Stu wasn't going to kill his own sister. Who is Stu's sister?
Tatum. Oh, it's Dewey. Oh, no. Okay. No. I was
Tatum was his girlfriend.
No. Yeah. So I'm saying Billy killed his now girlfriend. Anyway.
I don't know. But the answer to this question, but it is a very debated thing, and we'll never know 100%. But yeah, just the fact that there are 2 killers helps a lot. Also, this opening, it very quickly establishes that this will be very meta-textually about horror movies, because the killer is literally going to use horror movie trivia. So there's a whole fun element with that. But this is also going to be a movie that includes references. So on one hand, Halloween is directly mentioned in that opening. Kevin Williamson loves Halloween and will work on H2O. So Halloween is talked about very specifically. But when Casey's father shows up and he says, go down to the Mackenzies, that's a direct line, an homage from Halloween. So the movie's going to kind of have multiple fun with its horror movie references.
And while it's doing that, it's giving us, like I said, the nastiness of like a mother hearing her daughter getting killed over the phone.
Right.
And like,
right.
that's
it plays that stuff for real. Yeah, it doesn't, it's not like it's so funny that this character died. No, it's like their deaths are sure. I mean, it's definitely a precursor. And I think, it's, Whedon's even mentioned this, but it's precursor to Buffy, which also was like a very funny show that was also, that could be very wink wink, but that also wanted you to definitely take seriously, when the deaths happen and loss happen.
No one's arguing that Billy and Stu don't work quickly.
Yes, yeah.
Because like, and I understand the argument why Billy didn't kill them, because he shows up at Sid right afterwards, but he also showed up at Stu's party right after he killed Tatum. So it's like he's a multitasker. But the fact that they could get Casey up that quickly, I believe, hanged with her own intestines, in sort of in a very explicit and elaborate Hannibal style tableau. Well, they practice, I guess. It's been a year since they killed last, so they they obviously have workshop.
We got to make this really stand
out. They have a vision board and everything. Yeah, like they know what they're doing. And okay, so then we get that was night one. The movie takes place over 3 nights, and basically we find out we're in a town called Woodsboro, in California. We're thinking, I know it was filmed in Northern California, and it looks like it was. Eric, what house porn? These houses.
I know.
You start on Sid's. You start on Stu's house.
Stu's house too.
You start on Sid. She's at her mailbox, and they pull back as she's walking into her house, and it is this grand mountaintop estate, like
it is
in like wine country, and it's like this is like it's Zillow porn. These houses, but you realize she also has to run around them and evade Ghostface. So they need a lot of leg room. They need a lot of running around room. We get introduction to Sydney Prescott, her boyfriend Billy, who climbs through windows, talks about how she's, they to this day they haven't had sex and they seem to be on the track to. But then we would learn, probably an act later, the true story about what was going on with her, and that her mother was horribly murdered a year earlier, raped and murdered. And then through the introduction of Gale Weathers, we get pieces here and there. It's really well done, really well layered in, because they add a complicated backstory. I do think you're going to have to help me here.
Yeah.
Liev Schreiber I knew who he was before this movie.
he was like already like a known indie actor, with buzz around him.
Okay, so like seeing him as Cotton Weary,
doesn't speak.
I remember. Yeah, exactly. I was like, wait, what? So right there in your head, you're like, I don't think I put it together at that point where it's like, well, obviously he's here because of sequels. Now, when I see Cillian Murphy show up in Tron Legacy for 5 minutes at the beginning, I'm like, oh, he's for another Tron movie. Who else did we just talk about this? Like someone, Paul Giamatti as Rhino. Like obviously he's not just there for Rhino in Amazing Spider-Man 2, and that's it.
Sure. Yeah.
But I don't think I had that mindset then, but I do remember it through me because I'm like, hey, I know that guy.
No, same here. And then being like, that's brilliant. That, he could then become an elevated character in the sequels because they cast a very good actor in literally being put into a car on the news. But there he was.
And he would act with Rose McGowan again. Well, actually, he didn't act with her in this movie because she doesn't make it through this movie. But they were in Phantoms together, Eric. Phantoms.
They were in Phantoms. Yes.
So, so we get this backstory of her mom was raped and killed by a guy named Cotton Weary, but Gale actually, and this is another subversion of expectations because she's supposed to be the sleazy, opportunistic reporter.
Yes.
And in the end, she's right. Like
Yes.
she wrote a book where she thought Cotton Weir was innocent and that he was framed and railroaded, and Sydney was wrong. So like Gale Weathers' tell-all book was actually beneficial and was, you know, on the right track and looking to free someone who was an innocent person wrongly convicted. And so that was another added element, along with, and Courtney Cox and David Arquette met during this movie and they fell in love and they got married and had a kid and all that stuff. But the relationship between Gale and Dewey is also a really fun, interesting part. And this is something we could focus on during the non-murder elements of this movie, where they actually did throw in the killing of Henry Winkler's principal character because too much time had gone by without a kill. And he briefly was a red herring. Because he and the police chief were both like have a few lines about you awful kids, you know, kids today.
Yeah. And it was funny because we were a few years away from when like Winkler would do Arrested Development and kind of have the next stage of his career become
he was sort of a floater in the 90s.
Yeah, at this point he wasn't doing a lot. He made a lot of money producing MacGyver, bringing this all full circle. But as an on-screen actor, he was not.
Yeah, he wasn't like
notable
he
stuff.
wasn't for his like the Arrested Development resurgence, which now has led to Barry, which, you know, I hope season 3 comes along pretty soon. But like, he's great. But yeah, I do remember seeing him here was like, oh, that's fun, you know, because I hadn't seen him in a long time. Like, I think he had a few failed TV series that lasted only a season or so. But like, what was I going to say? Oh, the Dewey Gale thing, because we assume the worst of Gale because of her job and the way she yells at her cameraman and calls him a fat ass.
And she certainly is opportunistic because the whole thing.
Yeah, she's a shark. But
because
and so
like, her whole thing about, you know, like when it's like we could set a man because she is right about Cotton, but that she's like, you know, that'll do for my ratings. And like ultimately she's not doing this because she thinks like we are gonna help people. She wants to help herself, but she doesn't want to get her story right.
And she may have been using Dewey and sucking up to him and buttering him up because she wanted an inside track. But then it very quickly sort of morphs into a, wait, is she being genuine with him? Like, does she actually like hanging around? Because she's using him to get into Stu's party and walk around, plant a camera and stuff like that. But then they sort of like, Dewey is always hard on his sleeve. He's not like presenting any false fronts. And she sort of like melts down with that a little bit, creating a fun little side romance where you're never quite 100% sure of her intentions, but you really want to believe that she's fallen for him. And it's fun. It works. It's like a side story. And Dewey is, you know, Arquette is funny, sometimes intentionally, sometimes unintentionally. Like he's just got that type of presence. And that ice cream scene that happens where it's not completely synced up, but I don't know what was going on the set, but it was meant to sort of like,
I laugh so much.
I do too, because, well, I think the subtext here is like, he's such a junior officer and like old guard police smoke cigarettes. And he's like such a little boy. He's got to have an ice cream treat,
but he'll try to like do it in the same
way. But he like every time the chief takes a drag, he takes a mlurm of his ice cream.
Lick of his ice cream. Yes. That's a great touch. The sheriff, by the way, played by Joseph Whipp, who was one of John Saxon's deputies in A Nightmare on Elm Street. So
I didn't know that.
Little cop connection to his most famous form.
Rose McGowan as Tatum in this movie. The dream of many male cinephiles at the time, including myself, for this and the Doom Generation, and in a few years Jawbreaker. Just fun sidekick. Was Doom Generation before this?
I think it might have been. I think it might have been the year before this. Yeah. But it's a very fun dynamic. Again, Dewey works really well in this movie. Now, of course, the fact that he and Courtney Cox were really falling in love, they have great chemistry, and it's a great dynamic. And then when when it's revealed that they're sister and brother, that Tatum and Dewey are sister and brother, that's a great moment too. About when they talk about mom and when I'm in this uniform, and it just because it instantly gives you such a great sort of dynamic. She's the little sister, but she's kind of has all the power. And
I, like me, Eric, this movie, I am sure for you, infinitely quotable. I remember in film school, we would say all the time, bam, bitch goes down, bam, super bitch. Yeah, like Sid, Superbitch. There was said quite a bit. But yeah, among other lines of this movie. So, okay, I know we're skipping around, obviously, but so then we go to the school, we meet Sid's friends. Everyone at school is being questioned. The killer tries to strike again on night 2. And this is where he calls Sydney. She's home alone. Her dad has gone away to some expo. He's traveling business guy. I don't know what he's doing. But fun element of Sid on the phone now that we know what the phone call entails because of the first scene. There's this layer for us as the audience that's really cool. Her disbelief and how quickly it kind of turns when he's like, I'm not Randy. And then it gets even more serious when he says, do you want to die like your mother?
Yeah.
And so that call, plus a second call later to her, the first call kind of hints that this guy knows about, obviously everyone in town knows about Sid's mom.
Right.
And so the line is like, wait, did this guy kill Sid's mom? Does he know who killed him? Mm-hmm. Then the second one was a line about Cotton being innocent. And it's like, okay, this guy, whoever this is, killed Sid's mom. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So it even more lends into her backstory even more.
Also, I just want to mention that, again, I saw this movie over 20 times in the theater. I worked at a movie theater, guys. I didn't pay for it over 20 times. I would just.
But you would have
work. I would have. But
don't pretend like you wouldn't have.
I would have, but mostly I just stayed after work and watched it again. Or went on the weekends or on my days off to see it. But this movie played so well with audiences. It really had them, in the palm of its hand, and people were screaming their heads off. I always remember the moment when she fuck you cretin, when she goes back into the house off on the porch and he bursts out of the closet behind her. This big guy sitting behind me, my second or third time seeing it, screams so loud, and his buddy started just busting up, and he's like, what, dude, it was fucking scary. And that made me laugh, Matt.
And you laughed, and he was like, stop laughing so loud.
And then he just beat me up.
And then it's like, do you like horror movies? And then Sid even gets the meta line. It's like, no, they're all the same. What's the point? It's some big-breasted actress person who can't act, who's running up the stairs when she should be running out the door. And then she, to her credit, tries to run out the door, but the chain locks on it.
So she goes up the stairs.
And then I don't even know, we're going meta on meta here. Obviously, Tatum's got huge breasts, and they're very prominent, and so are her nipples when she opens the door to the garage and walks in. And so there are elements that turn away and shy away and play against her what we expect from a horror movie and the rules, because obviously there's that whole juxtaposition of cutting back and forth of talking about watching characters have nudity in Halloween, and Sid and Billy's sex up in the bedroom, and you can't be a virgin. And then she actually, loses her virginity right upstairs and back and forth, but she doesn't die. Right. So, but then you've got this scene where they're some big breasted star who can't act. I love Rose McGowan. She's not a great thespian. Right. So is it she's not great. In a lot of things, she does what she does, but I don't know that she could play Sid.
You know what I mean? Play Sid.
She's
great as Tatum. She's perfect as Tatum.
She has a lane, right? And so you literally have that playing out in the garage as a typical horror movie. So there are moments in this that play like a horror movie that we know.
Although because it is Scream, she still like fucks him up a little bit.
Well, yeah, because Ghostface
with the beer bottles,
kicks the shit out of him.
Right.
But then also one could argue dies because of her tits, or like she can't fit through her hourglass figure, can't fit through the fucking door, pet door. So there are elements that lean into it and give us what we have grown up with, and then there are parts that really turn a hard left and don't do what is supposed to happen by the rules of the horror genre.
Mm-hmm. I think that's it's a balancing act of giving us what we ultimately the audience does want, who's going to see this movie, the core audience, but at the same time subvert it. Like you've mentioned, by the way, it's like the 90s in general were a lull for horror. Now, of course, not a literal. There were horror movies being made, and there were some really good ones being made. And we've talked about some of them on this podcast, like In the Mouth of Madness. But it was pretty quiet overall, and very few of those movies were hits. And there certainly weren't slasher movies. There had been a Halloween 6 came out the year before this and bombed. But slasher movies,
and everyone thought Candyman was going to be a slasher movie, and it wasn't. Yeah.
I mean, it's on the fringe of it.
I mean, maybe the sequels
became
more that way, but we also spoke a little bit about how the early 90s, it was prestige horror. It was Misery and Silence of the Lambs and Interview with the Vampires and big stars doing, and
Oscar horror.
Francis Coppola's Dracula, right? Like,
right.
Things with actual giant costume departments and budgets and blockbuster stars. So, slasher movies didn't really exist, and it's not like this invented the mystery slasher, because a lot of slashers in the early 80s were mystery, like who's doing the killing. Prom night's brought up in this movie. Like there are elements of like. Eventually, we knew who Jason was, and it was Jason. But for a while in these movies, it's like, who's in the woods looking at people? Like,
right.
And so it plays with that.
Hell, Friday 13th Part 5 was another mystery.
Well, yeah, exactly. So the whole thing is like one of the reasons why Scream has managed to endure. There are several reasons. So one is that Ghostface is a rotating door.
Right.
And it's always like, oh, who done it of this new crop of teens or grown-ups or whomever, and that's one of the reasons why I argue Ghostface can't be on Mount Rushmore, because Ghostface is a feeling, Eric.
Right. We are all Ghostface.
it's a vibe. It's like, and it is interesting.
When you feel that Ghostface coming on, man?
How you talked about how like everyone can use that mask because it's not like invented by the Scream movie.
Yeah, they licensed it.
Dewey says this mask is sold in every 5 and dime in the state, right? Like, he said we just literally pulled this off the shelf too, and that will be a part of the movie.
We should explain, because I think that we're going back to, we enjoy wrestling with that mention, but the mask, which is now a very iconic horror mask, pre-existed Scream. And it was called
Ghostface.
It's called Ghostface. And if you buy merch, like, today, if you bought a new t-shirt on Fright Rags or any of those Terror Tea, all these sites that sell horror officially licensed stuff, it doesn't say Scream on the copyright. It says Ghostface, because the owners of the Scream movies do not own that mask.
And no one in the Scream movies says Ghostface.
Tatum does. She says Mr. Ghostface. That's
right. That's right. Oh yeah, I forgot that. Okay. Let's see here. So Sid's almost killed. She punches Gail Weathers. Day 3, final day. At this point,
she punches Gail Weathers, and it's extremely incriminating that the Billy has a cell phone, because no one at that high school has a cell phone.
But then he's cleared of charges, and we do find out later that he did use his one phone call to call her at Tatum's house. So that's why, that's one of the things that gets him out, and like he uses as sort of.
We don't know that definitively, though. She suggested, but
it could have been. Once we find out that Stu was around, that it could have been Stu. So it's the. This is when we get the Principal Hembry like yelling at the kids, calling off school because people are running around in costumes. We get more backstory about her mom actually being promiscuous, and it's a rumor around town enough that teenage girls still talk about it in bathrooms. We get Ghostface trying to get her in the school.
Although people think that is maybe not supposed to be Billy or Stu, that is supposed to be another like person fucking around.
Really?
Again, it can be whatever you want it to be. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I like that much freedom, but yeah.
Right.
So then we get Stu's party, which is the culmination of the movie.
Yep.
And the video store scene, which because Randy kind of vanishes for a while and only pops up, but then this is a big moment, is the video store leaning into the
Randy,
final
who
party.
is the biggest avatar for the horror superfan in the movie.
Right. And again, as mentioned earlier, piece together everything already. Like even though Billy had been freed by the cops, still says it's him. Like, no.
This was the scene Lillard told me. The video store scene is the scene he was the most like, are we going too far here in telegraphing the two of us are the killers? He was worried at the time.
Yeah, I get that because they like sort of sandwich Randy. Sounds pretty sexy, but like, it's like, I get that. But also that's the only moment, because I was going to mention too, I had this in my notes. Stu's really good at hiding it. Like Billy's all around being all glum and glowery and like looking like a killer when no one's looking. And Stu's just like a goofball who's like, yeah, you can come to the party. Excellent. When he's like, I'm going to kill everyone at the party. Like he's hiding it really well, except for that one scene. So it does stand out. But again, I don't think it was enough to make me think anything at the time.
No, I didn't think it. And it works the way it should work, which is in retrospect. It's like, oh yes, it's the two of them. And this scene, along with you mentioned that nobody said you did, buddy. Those are your two moments that you go back and watch it again. And it works, it all fits in that it was the two of them together.
And mention of the howling, the horror section. They are, then they go to Stu's party. Tatum gets killed by the garage door. Billy stops by after killing Tatum, presumably. And I guess we should just briefly talk about this also gets laughs nowadays too, because the scene where, and he even says he was stupid afterward to himself, where he's like, he's pressuring her to have sex because he tells her to get over the death of her mom. And it's like, like he's not supportive of her trauma. And she's even like, I'm sorry, my post-traumatic stress is getting in the way, of that. And it's just, funny now because, this is something that we pay a lot more attention to emotionally in our society than perhaps they did in 1995, 96. But he still knew he was a goofball bozo from bringing it up. But she fell for it because even she was like, you know what, he's right, I should move on. And Tatum was the only one who had it right, where she was like, Billy and his penis don't deserve you, because she was like, no, like this is stupid. But the scene. I'm sorry, Gary. No, go ahead.
The scene you're mentioning where he, like the scene earlier in the stairwell at school, where he's like, pressuring her about like, what change is, he pivots from like she was attacked that night before to like, why wouldn't you fuck me? I will say it's funny because that when I saw the New Beverly recently, when I watched like 1 through 4, like that was the other unintentional laugh along with the cell phone thing. But I will say that scene was always a little cheesy, but without we don't have to get into specifics because we'll go movie by movie, but you can tell watching Scream 2, they knew that scene might have been a little unintentionally funny because maybe they referenced it in Scream 2.
I mean, like Scream 2 definitely plays into obviously boyfriend trauma as well, which is a big deal. Everything happens here. Everything, like, they're also running a background program of where is Sydney's dad. He's not. They tried calling him at the hotel. He wasn't there. Stu brings up the fact that like, hey, where's her dad? Why can't they find her? The anniversary of the mom's death is coming up. Then Gail and Dewey find Neil Prescott's car. We still don't know what's happening. Is he dead? Is he the killer? At this point, we're not sure.
I want to pause for just 1 second to mention that it played, it probably was always in the script, but because Friends was already starting to explode at this point. You know, we're like a couple years into Friends when this movie comes out. When Gail walks into the party and everyone's starstruck, and you've got that girl being like, I watch your show religiously. It already was pretty funny as far as like, she is on a show that young people are watching religiously. And as we'd find out, would continue to do so for the next 3 decades.
And thanks to Netflix. So we get the death of the cameraman. We get the camera with the time lag, 15 to 30 seconds,
which is that's a great script. That's a great invention of Williamson's to put that tension in there, and it pays off.
And like Stu's house again, these mammoth juicy houses. He's got like dueling staircases that wrap around like a grand entrance, and then great use of the space, falling out windows, crawling through vans, stuck in a police car when Ghostface has the keys. Like just really good. Well, like it's like doing the best with like, hey, you have a house and 2 cars. What are you gonna do? And they make the absolute best of it and play everything to like the tensioniest T that you could possibly do, and it works. Then everything, at a certain point, Stu and Randy are like blaming each other. They're running to her. She doesn't know who to trust. She shuts them both out. And also at this point, after having sex, we believe Billy's been killed in front of her.
Right.
And so, but see, that plays out the way a traditional horror movie is. The red herring gets killed. Like that's how it works. And then that's basically what lets him off the hook is like, oh, he's not the killer. And so it's another layer on a layer, and it works. So let's just leap into, before we leap into, I wanted to say one thing. The big final moments of the movie and the big reveal. Wes Craven has a cameo as the high school janitor dressed in a Freddy sweater. Was he Freddy, Eric? Let's play multiverse here. Was Wes Craven playing Freddy Krueger? Like not just the janitor wearing a Freddy. Was he? I think he was Freddy Krueger. I think like
no, because he's Freddy. Because Himbry Winkler calls him Fred, not you, Fred. So that's just Fred the janitor. Because Nightmare on Elm Street exists as a movie in this movie. So this is just a janitor named Fred.
But the Matrix exists as the Matrix movie and the new Matrix movie, Eric. They're watching scenes on a wall from the Matrix and Matrix Resurrection.
I don't think this is the Freddy Krueger. I mean, New Nightmare.
I'm saying multiverse. This is Freddy Krueger, and the only reason he's not killing kids in this town is because so many kids are already being killed. He's like, I can't compete. Like, what am I going to do?
All right, I'll go with that.
All right. Big reveal. As soon as she closes the door and locks out Sid and Randy and Stu, Billy comes down the stairs and he is revealed to be the killer. But then the 1-2 punch is that Stu is also revealed to be the killer, shoots Randy, and we get the big reveal of the father who's being held prisoner.
Billy shoots Randy.
Billy shoots Randy. Oh, because she gives him the gun.
Mm-hmm.
And then, man, just the whole like the reveal of their plan. And it's so entertaining, and they play off each other so well.
So good.
The stabbing each other, the one of them having a motive, but the other one not. Because
Stu's reaction seeming like he might not have known all of this,
like he's like, hey, I thought we were both just killing for fun. But God, the way after he shoots Randy and he's like, we all go a little mad sometimes, Anthony Perkins Psycho, is such a douchebag thing, because who doesn't know that quote? It's like it's like being like, say hello to my little friend Scarface. Like
you said, it's predicting the douchiest of the internet.
No, like I said, like it's such a like the assumption that no one in the room, even though everyone's afraid for their lives, doesn't know where that comes from as one of the classic movie quotes, not just horror quotes of all time. Where he's like, yeah, I watch movies. Like, God, such a drip. Okay.
That scene though in the kitchen, holy shit. I can't explain how in rapture I was watching that scene, because it's a great scene. It's one of the best examples, as you kind of mentioned, of like the exposition that could be the worst part of a movie, but done in this like amazing way. So much like adrenaline through the scene. And then when they fucking start stabbing each other again, like at the time, I'm just like, this is crazy. Like, you know, when you kind of realize how far they're going to go with this plan, it's just awesome. And by the way, kudos to Williamson, who grew up, obviously, shocker guys, he grew up a huge horror fan, but you know, he put in that line. I mean, it's a great line, but the movies don't create psychos, movies make psychos more creative. After she says, you know, you psychos have seen too many movies, because look, it is an eternal thing of blaming the movies
and
like,
video games, obviously, make
movies and video
everyone
games
crazy.
and music, and it's heavy metal music's got it.
Satanic Panic, yeah, Dungeons and
Mhm.
Dragons, like anything, yeah, everything was the corruption of the youth, and made
Everything was
kids
corruption of
this
the youth.
way.
Everyone caused good kids to go bad because they watched this movie. So that was great that he put that in there, because he kind of like, you know, got ahead of everything on that with a movie that was going to very, you know, who knew, they didn't know the success it was going to have. It was going to bring back like these movies being popular with the teen audience. So that I thought that was a clever touch and a clever movie.
And Lillard gets to scream. It's a scream, baby. Like saying the line of the movie, it didn't need it.
Well,
I
except that
think
the
it
title
did.
wasn't supposed to be Scream. That's the funny thing, of course.
Yeah,
the title was Scary Movie, which is said a shitload. The script, you know, we should mention that. It was written, the script was called Scary Movie.
To the point where when the parody movies came out, they were called Scary Movie.
Because they were made by Dimension, they were made by the same studio. Yeah.
So the script was called Scary Movie. Was it Bob Weinstein? So who was like, didn't like the title. Wes and Kevin both loved the title and didn't want him to change it. But in this case, maybe Bob was right. Scream's a great title.
Yes.
Stu says it, not in a way that could make it the title of the movie, but the point of calling it Scream, according to Bob Weinstein, was to insinuate that there was a comedy element. Because, and it's sort of an old aphorism. We don't use it anymore. But when something's a scream, it's funny. Yeah. It means you laugh too loud, like Eric. It's a scream. And
MacGruber is a scream.
It is like a critic 40 years ago would have written that in a review. Like, this movie's a scream. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't play that way now. But I think in 96, it was still like, I grew up knowing what that meant. So obviously I would have known.
Yeah.
But like, that's why it's called Scream. And that's why Stu says it's a scream, baby. Because like, it's a kicker. This is entertaining. Like, that's entertainment, finger guns. It's a scream.
Yes.
So stabbing each other. Stu got stabbed a lot. You know, they play in that like Billy only gets stabbed once. And then Matthew Lillard on the phone is just great. He gets hit. You hit me with the phone, so Dick.
Funny.
My mom and dad.
I think he improv. I think that's the one he improved. Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Lillard is very self-critical of his performance in the movie. A few years ago, I saw him. There was a screening a few years ago for the 20th anniversary that was a Q&A with Williamson after, but Lillard was the moderator. And Lillard's very funny because he's like, what the hell am I doing in that movie? Why am I sticking my tongue out so much? Matthew Lillard,
he did that in Hackers too, though.
He did.
So like, that was just...
And he talks about that. He's like, that's a young actor not knowing what the fuck I'm doing. I'm like, dude, it's perfect. It's a Nicolas Cage type performance he is giving in this movie and in Hackers.
Also, when you pair it with Skeet, like as the two killers, they have very different levels of energy. Like,
right. And if you've seen Matthew Lillard in anything recent, like Twin Peaks, or I forget that FX show he was in, he doesn't act like this anymore. This is not still his shtick.
It'd be funny if
it was. But holy shit, he's a great actor. But I think he's so great as Stu. And yes, it is a super mannered, like I said, Nicolas Cage type performance. But just like I would say that people are wrong to instantly criticize Nicolas Cage performances for being mannered because they're often brilliant, I think this is perfect, what he's doing. And it could not work, but it works. And like you said, I think it's a great counterpoint to the brooding Billy is Stu being so manic and
brooding Billy with his cellular telephone.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh, and their physicality with each other has made many "Are They a Gay Couple" commentaries and fanfic. The way they're kind of like, one coming up behind the Stu kind of leaning over Billy's shoulder there.
Or if anything, maybe one way, like Stu, because Stu is following Billy, right? Like, and doesn't have the motive. So it could be that Stu's in love with Billy. Mm-hmm. Then we've got, Gale saves momentarily enough for Sid to get away.
And we should mention the whole, you got to have a sequel. Again, they didn't know this movie would be so successful they'd get a sequel, but that too just was so fun. The fact that they're talking about how they're planning the sequel.
But they're just calling, and it feeds into what Billy said, his line about how it's all just one great big movie, right? Like life's just one big movie, to the point where he and Stu are actively talking about their future as the sequel.
Yes.
It's just time. The progression of time is a sequel, and or whatever their next crime spree is. They both think and talk like this. We should have a when Billy when Billy met Stu, like Dumb and Dumber type sequel. What was that? When Harry Met Lloyd, right? The prequel.
Yeah.
Okay. Gale comes back. She's not dead. Randy comes back. He's not dead. Has a very funny line about being a virgin. Dewey, you find out, survived in the end.
Dewey was not supposed. Dewey was scripted to die. But that was a on the set decision to film an alternate take of him being put in an ambulance, and they still weren't sure they were going to use it.
Okay. Well,
but
maybe
ultimately
to kill brother.
They liked him too much, and the test audiences liked him too much, and so he got saved.
Courtney Cox liked him too much.
Yes, although Gale is all about the story. She's Dewey's being put in the ambulance, but Gale's going to report her story.
Well, look, what is she going to do? Wait till the next day? She's been a victim of this. Well, he also gives a thumbs up. So he's going into the ambulance. He's like, I'm okay. So that gives her they're okay to do it. Billy gets the multiple deaths. Stu gets a TV on his head. And
Billy gets, one of the last great meta moment, which is this is Randy says it, but this is the moment when the killer comes back, because of course, huge trope, especially the 80s slasher movies of, the killer who you think is dead multiple times, only for him to pop up again.
But then she says, not in my movie. That's borrowing his own language after she killed him.
And again, a moment that I just, 1996 me was the fact that she just shoots him as he, opens his eyes.
So as probably the second most famous person in this movie because of TV and The Craft, Nev Campbell, this was just a huge thing. We knew
Craft, which was her and Skeet Ulrich earlier the same year, so a big year for the Campbell Ulrich connection.
Scream, great movie. I don't know if you heard anything we said, but we like it. We are pro Scream. We will get less pro as some of these movies, but
it's a good series. We should mention just the success of this movie, which is just that this movie opened right before Christmas. I saw this movie opening night, December 20th, with my mom and sister, because we were taking my mom out for her birthday, which was the next night, but we were free that night. And the thing is, even though this movie it was getting closer to opening, and also we should mention Craven coming off of two bombs, one very good movie, I think, with New Nightmare, but bomb, and then Vampire in Brooklyn, which was just poorly received on every level. So he was in a bad place in his career. And the predictions on this movie, box office wise, were all, it's going to bomb, because why is it opening at Christmas? Variety, I remember a lot of the reviews were like, this is not going to perform at all. Even though there was some buzz around the movie, no, they were like, it won't do well. And then it only made $6 million opening weekend. And we're already in 1996 in a place where you kind of live or die by your opening weekend. So it made $6 million, and it's like, okay, yeah, it's going to be straight to video. And instead, in 1996, it's amazing. It made over $100 million off of a $6 million opening weekend, because the word of mouth was so insane. And so this movie was already very
word of mouth and repeat.
Yep. So this movie performed like movies used to, in that it just didn't drop.
It was people going back, but also bringing their friends, which is something that you don't do, Eric. Never go take friends who haven't seen a movie to go see a movie you've seen already multiple times. You don't do that.
I hate anyone who does that. So this movie played for months, and they put it back. Like they gave it another boost. I think they wanted to get it over 100 million, but they knew it would succeed because there was so much word of mouth. So let's get people to go back one more time, and a few people still haven't seen it, the stragglers. So they pushed it back in like April or May, and it broke 100. So this was just like a insane time. And we'll talk a little bit more about this next week, but I interned at Dimension Films. So Dimension was part of Miramax. Yes, Harvey and Bob Weinstein, like a lot of great movies have their names on this. Not the opposite of great people, but I interned at Dimension spring of 97. So this movie had just come out. I started in January. So this movie it was like, holy shit. Like they in Dimension had never seen anything like this. They had The Crow, they had other hits, but Scream was just this insane success. The fact that they greenlit that sequel and got it out December 97 kind of tells you all that it was like, we need to capitalize on this. While every other studio is greenlighting horror movies at the scripts they had sitting around and getting hot young casts to star in them.
I go back and forth in my memory and my mind palace about I was either watching Scream or The Frighteners. There was a specific theater, Cineplex Odeon theater I went to in the West Village because at this point I was back in New York.
Frighteners came out the summer before this.
I can't remember if it was summer or Christmas, but one of these movies I saw with very few people in the audience, but two of them were MCA and Ad Rock. So it was one. Yeah, it was two of the Beastie Boys were in either me watching Scream or me watching Frighteners. I can't remember exactly which one it was, but it was that theater for sure.
Interesting. That's awesome, by the way. I want to watch a movie with MC and Adric. I realized.
Well, and I went and I sat between them. I was like, "Hey guys, can I say is the seat taken?
I'll be your Mike D today.
You want to make a Randy sandwich out of me?"
They got your reference, even though they hadn't seen the movie yet.
Yeah, they're like, "What? I haven't even seen it. What am I saying?" All right,
but yeah, huge. Like it really was a game changer. This movie, and as we continue to talk about the sequels, we'll talk more about the imitators and everything that happened along with it. But I love this movie.
It is funny. Very, very quickly, and then we'll wrap up. Is that Kevin Williamson? His scripts started getting made. Like, so I Know What You Did Last Summer, The Faculty, Teaching Mrs. Tingle, and then he started headed to TV. And it's had a few TV series, most notably a non-horror TV series. The most famous one is Dawson's Creek, probably followed by Vampire Diaries.
Yep.
But then he did a horror-based one called The Following with Kevin Bacon and what's his name?
I'm forgetting you.
What's the dude? The British dude.
I know. What's Johnny Following's name?
God. Johnny, Kevin Bacon, and
James Purefoy,
which had in it a lot of stabbing, which is his specialty, stabbing to the stomach specifically. And just what a difference a decade makes. When did Following? Actually, more than a decade. So it was like 2012 or 13. And 13. The outcry of violence, maybe because it was television, right? But it's like, this is what his bread and butter was for, a solid decade with the Scream movies. And then it lands on television with The Following, and it's decried and sort of blasted before the show starts.
Oh no.
Like at TCAs, he was getting heat for the violence.
God. Yeah. I'll never forget that because look, so the Following was premiering in early 2013. Now, December 2012, the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting happens. This horrific, awful, awful thing. However, as someone who does not believe that movies and TV shows will make someone turn into a psycho killer, it was that TCA was like, Jesus Christ, because there was a lot of people in that room who, and we talked about this many times, about people who like have a story they're already working on, and now they want quotes for that story because The Following, Hannibal, and Bates Motel were all premiering within a couple months. It was a weird time because those three shows were coming out very close together. And so there was a bunch,
and two of those three were excellent shows. Yeah.
Yes, two of those things are excellent shows, but the following was the one paneling there. So they got all the brunt of the like, think about the children. How is this on TV? Isn't this horrible, terrible, going to make people do terrible things watching it? Yeah. So it was again, he put that line in his movie in 1986 because he knows that's what people go to. And there they are going to it.
And then he lived it.
And because the following wasn't even a great show, but so it's extra funny, right? That they're like, the following is going to make terrible things happen. I'm like,
and it was also an extreme case of shining a spotlight on the thing that wouldn't have been as notable if you didn't shine a spotlight on it. It was the whole cop killer element with Ice-T, right? Like where as soon as the critics start lambasting it, his sales went through the roof. All right, that's enough of Scream. We're gonna have a lot of
never
Scream.
Enough of Scream.
Well, we're gonna come back with Scream 2, sequel that happened just a year later. Same creative team, Kevin Williamson writing, Wes Craven directing, returning stars. Everyone who lived comes back.
Yep. And now it's going in. It's that thing of like this under the radar movie that was a tiny opening and then became something. Now you're going into the sequel and it's mega hype. It's like this is now a Christmas event movie when Scream 2 opens
this Christmas.
Yeah, pretty much.
Nothing says Christmas like cellular telephones. All right. Until next week, everything is possible, but nothing is real. And Shakma.
Shakma!